Alexander Gottwald. I'm sitting here with Irene Caesar. She is, actually, I'm pronouncing her name more the US style. She's living in New York, but she's born Russian in Petersburg. And she is a very complex personality. She's a philosopher, an artist, a visionary, and well, we want to talk today about the things that are going on in Ukraine. And we will see where this whole thing will lead us. Irene, I'm very happy to have you here. You're in Moscow at the moment. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so can you please give our listeners a little bit of background on who you are and what is your current purpose on this Ukraine thing?
I'm a philosopher, a professional philosopher. I'm a PhD in philosophy, and I actually am engaged in this very specific thing. I'm engaged in ideological struggle. So this is basically my specialty within philosophy. So I don't do just epistemology or history of philosophy. I did the ideological struggle for my entire life. And everything that I do else, right? I do conceptual art, I do history of philosophy, I do representation of the most revolutionary science in the world, information wave technology of the quantum leap. So everything else that I do is actually just variations of the ideological struggle, because I firmly believe that when ideas, occupy the minds of many people, they become the material force. And with this kind of ideas, I deal with this kind of ideas. I deal with ideas that become the material force, that can destroy nations or they can create nations. So this is basically what I do. So right now, at this very moment, I'm engaged in writing a book. I have a contract with the American company to write a book on the wave pharmaceuticals. But this book, it deals with the quantum leap and the shadow government and the administrations of European Union and United States, they sabotage the quantum leap. And the components of this sabotage involves also the sabotage of our history, because these technologies are our ancestral legacy. Our ancestors, they had these technologies, and we Russians, we have these technologies in the most advanced form, because Russia and Russians were the cradle of the white race. Our culture started on the territory of Russia, and we have access to this technology firsthand because we have memory in our genome. That's why Russians are ahead of everybody right now. In 1985, CNN made a report about the advancement of this technology in Russia, and they said that Russia is ahead of everybody else for at least 15 years. But Russia is still ahead of everybody else because everybody who developed these technologies in 1985 still do not have permission to leave the country, even on vacation. And these technologies basically involve the remote control of biosystems via the transmission of wave matrices. So you can remotely control climate, geophysical processes, you can control viruses, you can control human populations, you can control basically every component of this planet remotely via the transmission of wave matrices. You AIDS, diabetes, even type 1 remotely. You can have the unlimited access to energy, to resources, to food via the processes of transmutation from quantum vacuum. And these technologies right now are available. So basically what's going on right now in the world is that the specific group of people who got to power via the financial system, they sabotage these technologies, and they sabotage them specifically because these technologies will bring a new social system. And this social system goes against their beliefs, their ideals, and their ideals are the slavery, the slave system, and the point is that this is their ancestral code. So we have our own ancestral code and they have their own ancestral code. They only change the names, but the slavery system was, 5,000 years ago it was slavery system, 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, or now, it's the same slavery system. You can call it imperialism, you can call it capitalism, you can call it, feudalism. It's the same system. And this code actually is the code of this specific, group of people. If they change, they should change it basically, because otherwise, if they go ahead with this system of slavery, they bring implants, which will not be just RFID implants in their hand. This will be brain implants, so-called BCI, brain computer interface. So they are not interested just in cashless society. They're interested in total, complete slavery, in transforming people into a herd, which can be remotely turned off, controlled remotely, like literally by robots, this. And their ideal is the insect kind of society, where the small group of people controls remotely a group of slaves, and Clinton, it was reported by the victim of the MK Ultra program, Kathy O'Brien, that Clinton said that New World Order is impossible to usher in without the complete psychotronic control of this planet. So this is, this is not technological progress. They try to, announce this program as a kind of technological progress, Internet of Everything or Internet of Things, electronic government. This is not technological progress. This is a very primitive, system, which is precisely the system of kind of insect kind of society. They even community. They even show the interest in insect kind of communities and even admiration, for the insect kind of communities. So, and Ukraine is basically just a brick in this road that they lay down towards the system of global slavery. And why Ukraine is so important is that, this group of people, they're nationals of a specific national code. They try to represent themselves as a kind of globalist. This is not globalism, okay? This is not a system of the human values, democracy, and justice, equality, and etc. This is specific, people of specific nationality, and because they have specific history, specific traditions, specific rituals, specific, memories, not just family memories, the families of their nation. That's why they're building this specific system. So that's why they're against nationalism. Because when people are aware of nationalism, they are aware that every nation has its own national code. And it is supposed to be like this. Because the universe is holographic, meaning that the universe is entirely in its every matrix point. And because it is entirely in its every matrix point is unique. You understand what I
Sure.
mean? This means that we are unique. You know, we are not like people living in somewhere else. You know, we are, have our own unique national traditions. So our sovereignty is not just territorial sovereignty. It is historical sovereignty. It's not just genes of genome. This is specific cultural code. And when they try to erase the codes of people, this is basically the mechanism of domination and genocide. So erasing nationalism from the culture is precisely the form of genocide. And Nazism and nationalism are two opposite things. Nazism destroys nationalism because Nazism is only about one nation. So it erases the notion of nation, Nazism is about slaves and slave masters. It is not about nations. Nationalism is about multi-polar world, the world with many poles, with many unique sovereign nations who live in friendship, or at least in their own continuum, without an attempt to destroy other nations. And our ancestors, always lived according to the law of karma. We never destroyed other nations, We have our own territories. We were technologically advanced. We did not need, basically, to destroy and kill other nations. It was not our, genetic code. And if you look at the history of our race and our nations, who comprise the family of white race, right? We were the origin of culture on this planet, and we gave culture to every other basically race. We built pyramids in Latin America. We built pyramids in Egypt. We built pyramids in North China. It was we, and this is proven not just by legends, because in Latin America, Indians, they say that that white people, some white gods came and built pyramids. It's also in Chinese legends. It's also proven by skeletons found with the blonde hair in North China, So, and why, again, coming back to Ukraine, why Ukraine is so important? Ukraine is very important because we are talking right now about Khazars, who are Mongoloids. They are very new, I would say. They are very recent tribe. They emerged very recently. And what happened is that they converted into Judaism in the mid-8th century, and they converted into Judaism via erasing their own traditions. And by accepting some foreign tradition, they converted into the traditions of the Negroid tribe of Seth, or tribe of Judah, which lives in the North Sudan and Ethiopia, which is an African tribe, right? So they accepted these traditions of some foreigners, via erasing their own history. Meanwhile, they live specifically around Caspian Sea, which was called Azar Sea. So Hazar means somebody who lives around Caspian Sea. So they are basically, according to their own genetic research, they have maternal DNA from white Europeans, and they have paternal DNA from Turks and Kurds. So they're not Semites, they are Mongoloids with some addition of white blood. So they are not Jews according to their own criteria. So they are Mongoloids, and they constitute 92% of all Jews in the world. They lived along the Silk Road, Khazars, and they were engaged in the opium trade and slave trade. So they traded white slaves. This is their genetic code, and they're basically Azerbaijanians. You know, if you look at Azerbaijan, this is Khazars, but in Ashkenazi Jews, you have also white blood. You have Russian, basically Ukrainian blood, and the point is that they built an empire, Khazarian empire, because they, they lived along the Silk Road, and they basically traded something that was easy to trade. It was most, profitable. And the point is that they still want to do the same thing. And they're still doing the same thing. So if you look at this so-called shadow government or the Committee of the 13 or whatever, these people who control the Western financial system, right? They're Khazars, right? And what they do, they still deal drugs, cocaine and opium drugs, and they still deal white slaves. And the ideal of their ideal society, is to deal drugs and deal white slaves more efficiently. And they were coming to power. It was a process, and the process of coming to power was all along, all over the 20th century. It was in stages, It started basically when the British Empire accepted Khazars after Russians destroyed Khazarian Empire in the 10th century. They lost their land, which they took from us in the first place. They lost this Khazarian Empire. They went to basically Europe, and when they were kicked out from Spain for human sacrifices and drinking infants' blood, British Empire accepted them, and eventually they subdued the British Empire itself. And if we look at the founding of Freemasons in the mid 18th century, this was basically their, I would say, the conversion of their final conversion of Brits into the covenant nation. It was a complete conversion into the ideals of not just Judaism, but into the Khazarian Judaism, which is an extreme form of genocide, because they continue in their cultural code. They continue the ideals of genocide. So if you read Talmud, it's precisely about the struggle against all other nations and in enslavement of all other nations for the sake of global Khazarian Empire. And so this was the first stage, right? And then what happened is that they brought down French Empire, they brought down Russian Empire, and the Russian Revolution was made by Khazars. I would say 90% or maybe even more of so-called communists or Bolsheviks, they were Jews. And I would not even call them Jews. They're not Jews. They are Turks from white mother, right? So Khazars. So it was made by Khazars. After that, what they did, they engaged in genocide of Russians, both ethnical cleansing of the grand scale and cultural cleansing and cultural genocide. So what they did, they split the territory of the Russian Empire into the artificial republics of some kind of artificial states, which never existed before. For example, Kazakhstan in 1924, the nation of Kazakhs was created, and the Republic of Kazakhstan was created on the land where we lived, Kazakhs. I'm from the ancient Kazakh family. Look at me. Do I look like Mongoloid? And Kazakhs lived on this land. We had our ancient swastika cities on this land, our ancient cosmodromes on this land. It is not just the remains of Archaim, our ancient city, which is dated 3,000 years ago. But it's much more ancient than this. It's also the remains of our skeletons with with white hair, with completely European features, which were recreated in that area. There are no ancient graves of Mongoloids in Kazakhstan. Mongoloids were in minority in Kazakhstan. They were taken as refugees because we were not killers, we were not murderers, we never killed other nations. That's why 100 small nations are still living on the territory of Russia. So Bolsheviks, Jewish or Khazars, genocidal, I would say, freaks, they created Kazakhstan, and in 1922 they created Ukraine. There was never country as Ukraine. There was always a part of Russia, and it was called Mala Russia, meaning small Russia, and the language was the dialect of Russian language. So they created an artificial country, artificial state, republic with artificial language. And why they did it? Because Freemasons or Illuminati, which is also artificial, stupid name for enlightenment in France. It's stupid. I would never say Illuminati. I would never say Jews. This is Khazars who took control of the financial system of the world. So they basically, Freemasons, right, or Illuminati, just call them Khazars who just want world domination, who are very cruel and have the same traditions as they had before. And they're not just have them in their memory, they recreate the same cultural code. For example, eating the ears of Aman on the holiday of Purim, right? If you look at Azerbaijan, there was a few stories just right now. A few people, right, they criticize Azerbaijan for killing Armenians in Karabakh, right? You know what Azerbaijanians did? They did threatening of these people. They said to them, we will cut your ears. So they have the same tradition of cutting ears. You never will find this thing in the Old Testament. This is Khazarian tradition of cutting ears. So they took on the Old Testament because it was very close to their own cultural code of the global genocide and global domination. Where, all these things like coming, occupying the land and killing everybody in this land and bringing all the churches down and killing infants. Our ancestors never had this tradition. In our cultural code, if you take, somebody in the battle, right? You let these people go in like 8-10 years. You let these people go or allow him to live in your land. That's how we got to this 100 small nations in our land, because they were fighting us, but then we just allowing them to live because we have huge land. If you look at Russia, it's still the biggest country in the world. So Ukraine is very important because it is a cornerstone when Zionism is getting into the new stage. It is the stage when it is not just the local land for Khazars. It is precisely the stage when they will start building the global empire. That's why Ukraine for them is so important. Ukraine, for the Committee of 13, or whatever you call them, it's more important than Israel because they never were in Israel, okay? Israel is not their land. Old Testament is not their book. They have nothing to do, both racially and historically, with the Old Testament Negroid Jews from the tribe of Judah. You know, this was the whole Old Testament is the stages of falsification of history. And right now, Hazars, they engaged in the most cruel anti-Semitic war in the world. The most cruel, ultimate anti-Semites are Hazars. They are not Semites, but they engaged in a horrific ethnical cleansing of Palestinians who are Semites, and Syrians who are partially white and partially Semites. And Ukraine, for them, is, as they say, is their motherland. This is what they do in Ukraine. They want, if you look, they want it back. And if you look at the leader of Chabad, Menahem, Mendel, Schneerson, very respectable. They announced him as their Messiah, right? He's dead already, but he's so respected by them that they announced him to be a Messiah, right? So there are documents about his agenda and about his strategy, and he specifically said that we should return Hazaria, we should rebuild Hazaria, and we should enslave Russians, you know, this, and Ukrainians, we should either kill them or we should enslave the rest. And this is precisely what is going right now in Ukraine. You know, events in Ukraine has nothing to do with democracy, has nothing to do with United States, has nothing to do with European Union. And both European Union and United States are fooled by Hazars who use them as their disposable assets. What basically what's going on to both European Union and United States, they dilute, you know, white population. They bring the countries of the European Union and the United States to the stage when whites will be in minority, and when the white culture and our national legacy will be completely destroyed. Traditional, our family, you might say Russian Aryan family, you know, will be completely destroyed. Even the notions of, of man and woman and child, they bring in pedophilia, they bring in human sacrifice, they teach all over United States. In every city, they have Freemasonry lodge. And in this lodge, what do they teach? They teach them exactly what Menahem, Mendel, Schneerson said in his document. And what he said? He said, we will deprive them of their nationalism while we will be building our own nationalism, okay? We will deprive them of their history while we will teach them that we are the God's chosen people, right? Racially and ethnically, that we are basically our, their masters. They should accept us as, the climax of the development of the human race. This is basically what they're teaching all over United States. And all these, lodges, they basically do something that is against the American Constitution, something that destroyed the United States of America. The same is done to Europe. And all this comes to Britain Empire, right? To London, to the city of London. And, Brit exactly means somebody who, has a covenant with the God. Brit exactly in Hebrew means the covenant, right? So British royalties, right? Princess and queen and the whole shebang. They think that in this way they justify their hereditary tyranny, and in this way they can justify being special, being exclusive, and in this way they justify their pretenses for world domination. But what's going on right now is that Zionism going into this new stage will destroy the British monarchy itself. So if you look at Freemasonry, their agenda of Freemasons is to destroy all religions and all monarchies. They destroyed already, French monarchy. They destroyed already Russian monarchy. So the next is British monarchy. So what's going on right now is that Zionism of these people who came to power in Ukraine is a completely different kind of Zionism, and their agenda is a completely different agenda. And if we will allow them to go to power in Ukraine, these people will completely destroy our cultural legacy, our history, and they will destroy the British Empire itself. So the ideal of the British Empire is to build the Zion with the new king of Jerusalem, right? But if you look at what Khazars did already in the United States, they already have the king of Jerusalem. Because if you look at Mr. Obama, right, it's completely evident that he is not Kenyan, okay? And he is not American. He is not even born in America. And it's very well known in the United States that his social security number, his birth certificate, all his school, college records, all are falsified, And it's very evident that his parents were just CIA proxies who were used to create a, kind of legend of, fake family history of Mr. Obama. And every American president was in lineage with the British Queen. They all have royal, bloodlines. Everybody. And
yes. It's all going back to John Lackland.
Yeah, and Barack Obama wouldn't have a royal heritage. No way. So, and he would be just a guy from the next door. No way. So, evidently, he's a special project of Khazars, and he is supposed to play some specific role, the role of Antichrist, right? Who is Antichrist? Antichrist is Satan. Who is Satan? Satan is Seth or Set. And Seth is the god of the Upper Egypt. He is the god of death and the god of desert. There is no other Seth. It's only one Seth, right? And there is a tribe of Seth that still lives in the Upper Egypt, right? And they have their royal lineage. And what is this royal lineage? This is the so-called Solomonic royal dynasty. And if you take Mr. Obama and you take all the representatives of this royal family, he looks exactly the same. They have specific, faces. They have very long chins. And, when Kissinger did this project of Mr. Obama, they found actually a woman who has long chin. They went to these kind of details, but her chin is triangular and their chins are very different. And if you look very closely at his face has nothing to do with Kenyans. Kenyans have very specific national kind of faces, very short noses, thin noses. He is no way Kenyan. He is precisely and can be nothing else, because they want global Zion. And who can legitimately usher in the global Zion? Only the person who is a direct descendant of King Solomon. Only the direct descendant of King Solomon can actually legitimately rebuild the Temple of Solomon, right? So this is basically what's going on with this project. And it's very important to understand that Obama operates in Ukraine as not as an American president, because Zionists want to destroy every national sovereignty and every national currency. They want to create one global Zion, with their own currency, which will be digital or cashless currency, and it has nothing to do with the United States or Russia or us, basically. according to their plans, we should be destroyed. There is the document by Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the leader of Chabad. In this document, he says, it is a speech which was secretly sent to Russia, and it's documented, it's a document. And in this speech, he said that you will never be able to change Russian Aryans. You can only destroy them. So this is the agenda. So at this moment, what's going on is that we should consolidate back all the components of our culture. We should unite, and we should realize that Ukraine for us is a battleground field for all of us to survive, because in their plans, either we get destroyed or we accept that we are inferior to them, and this is just, it's not just fake and mistaken, it is against the law of quantum physics, the holographic principle, and their understanding is inferior to science, it's anti-scientific, and because of this, they sabotage the quantum leap, because at this very moment, we can build teleportation portals, we can go to the other dimensions, we can have vimanas, we can cure incurable diseases, we can feed this world, we can get rid of poverty, we can literally, create a just world, and this is what, by the way, Russians were doing. If you look at the history, even if the history of the Soviet Union, Russians gave, they were giving to Africa. They never taking out everything. They were giving and giving and giving. So this is our cultural code. And Hazaria and we were in the struggle. So this would, everybody in the white world, every white person should understand that we were fighting these people 13,500 years ago. There was a global war, and there was another war 40,000 years ago. And this is documented by archaeological finds. That, this is very well known. You have radiological remains, you have radiation, high levels of radiation. You have our ancient cities with, molten walls from plasma weapons. It's all over the planet. So it's well known and can be proved that 13,500 years ago, there was a global war. After that war, the Earth axis moved, and this brought in the Ice Age. The entire Europe was lying under ice, and every white person, every European lived on the territory of Russia and spoke Russian. And we lived on this big territory, and there was ice. And so we lived in this big territory, like a belt over the Aral Sea, Caspian Sea, Black Sea, and all over to China and India. We built pyramids in the North China, which are bigger than pyramids in Egypt, and there are more of them. And it is clear that it was us, because the North China, yeah.
When we're speaking about pyramids, what do you say about these findings of pyramids in Crimea? Because they say these are maybe the oldest pyramids in the world. That's what I read on some blogs on archaeology, and that they say that, well, this might have something to do also with this Ukraine attacks now. What do you know about these pyramids?
Yes, you are completely right. The point is that to bring in world domination, they should bring in the idea that they dominate culturally and historically. You know, this is what this is the whole project is about. So they want to prove that they are the God's chosen people, right? So everybody descended from you know, all this, you know, the Old Testament story. They're from their tribe, right? That's why Brits they you know, they converted into, you must say, Judaism, because British Queen is evidently not Christian. She is evidently has, if she has a covenant with the Jewish God, she is, you might say, Semite, though she would never accept that she is a Semite. So, and what they're doing, they are continually destroying our legacy, and precisely by occupying parts of our land and destroying the archaeological remains. And Crimea, you're completely right, Crimean artifacts, they're not just pyramids, they're the whole layer of our culture, because as I said, you know, after Ice Age started, we lived in this belt, and this belt is right now under attack, because it's not just Crimea, it's also Afghanistan. You know, Afghanistan was inhabited by us. And still, right now, if you look at Afghans, they are Aryans, you know. Many of them still have blue eyes and blonde hair. And, you know, in Pakistan and Iran, they have you know, compartments of their nation which even speak something close to Russian language. And the point is that because of the holographic principle of the universe, you don't have to dominate the planet, you know. We can have access to energy, unlimited access to energy, unlimited access to minerals, resources, and food, just through this technology, having some, you know, compact small territory. So we lived initially on the North Pole, and in the north of Russia, the language is almost 100% identical to Sanskrit. And not just language, it's also, you know, patterns on the clothes. And if you look at the graves, archaeological remains, it's the same remains, the same armor. We have a specific armor which is we call it kalchuga, which is made from small rings of metal, you know, together. And this, you know, sharp helmets. All these graves from North Pole, okay, to Ukraine, Iran, you know, Syria, Egypt, North China, India, the same graves. They have this armor, which is specifically Russian armor. Nobody else did this armor, right? It has sacrifices of horses. In Archaim, in Urals, in India, in Egypt, the same thing. And the patterns, swastikas, this all over the place. In Syria, the famous Samara plate, which is dated 4,000 years BC. It means that it predates coming of Negroid Jews from you know, Upper Egypt through the you know, through this narrow you know, narrow water between Sinai and Upper Egypt. This is the
Suez Canal.
no. I forgot the whatever. So they went through this very narrow place between Upper Egypt and Sinai, right? And this plate, Samara plate, called Samara plate, it predates their coming. It's dated 4,000 years BC, and this the same patterns, right? The same designs are found in Urals, and it's found in Siberia. So we are coming from the north, and these patterns in Siberia predates the same patterns in Sumer. You know, in Sumerian culture, we have, you know, swastic patterns, and they predate you know, the Old Testament culture. and it predates the Sumerian legends, I say mythology. So we were coming from the north, and so the same patterns, the same graves, the same rituals. We have the same marriage rituals and as in India, right? We have the same linguistic traits, and we have Samara in Iraq, and we have Samara in uh, Urals. There is the river Samara from Urals to Volga. And Samara means Samara means Ra, the river Ra itself, Ra. Ra is sun, the universal source of light, and the river Volga was called Ra in the ancient times. And there are maps right now where you can see Ra as, Volga as Ra. And Samara means itself Ra. So there is the river Samara and there is the city Samara. And there is a culture Samara. So this plate in northern Syria belongs to Samara culture. So it is the same culture. And Arkaim, the swastika city in the southern Urals, belongs to the Samara culture. So basically it's the same culture. And what they're doing right now, they are occupying land by land, destroying the artifacts. What they did in Iraq, they occupied Iraq. What they did first, they destroyed or just took possession of artifacts. What they did in Ukraine, first thing, they occupied Ukraine. And Kiev, they took artifacts from the museum of Kiev, to destroy the very, trace of our culture. And
it looks exactly like that to me. Also, if you look at YouTube now, they present as Ukrainian culture a young woman who's doing pole dance, as if that was what Ukrainian culture is about. And so as if basically they treat Ukrainian women or Russian women also like prostitutes, and they try to take away their value, and they try to present them like this young woman there in her slutty clothes there as this is Ukrainian culture. And they stole the gold from Ukraine by this Nazis.
Not just gold.
Yes,
they took
and the artifacts.
Scythian gold. No, it's all, this whole thing is horrible. They took Scythian gold because we are Scyths. So we are Scythians. So they took our legacy, our gold. This gold doesn't have value. It's invaluable. It's beyond any value.
Yeah, and that's what I feel also about all these occupied countries now, like you said, Iraq, but also Syria, that they are after the legacy of the ancestors, because they themselves don't have any. And if they allow other people to realize that there are in fact nations and countries that have a legacy, they are screwed because they don't have any, and they are just robbers and murderers. And I mean, look at the people who conquered the United States. What did they do? They just killed the Indian nations there and built their so-called free nation on the graves of millions of Indians. And of course now they are controlled even by something worse, as you pointed out.
Yes, and we also lived in America, on the American continent. It's very well documented. We lived also in America, and both in South America and North America. For example, Amazon River. Why it's called Amazon River? Because the tribe of Amazons or Amazon women lived on the Amazon River. A tribe of Amazon women lived on the Amazon River in South America. And it's well known that Amazon women, Amazons, or Amazonki we say, are lived on the territory of Russia. And when Spaniards came to the Latin America, they came to South America, they reported that they were met with Aboriginals who were controlled or guarded by some tribe of white women. This is a historical fact. And we also lived in California, and the Indians, we call them Indians, right? But they're not Indians, they're Mongoloids. So North American Indians or South American Indians are Mongoloids. So Mongoloids reported that there were white tribes of white people who were living in this area, and they were much more advanced in their culture. And we lived in Arizona, we lived in Alaska, of course, and I just recently visited our ancient villages in Arizona, in Sedona, and the name of the village is Palatki, and Palatki is a Russian word. Palatki means tents, because we lived in tents. We were, when we were going from one place to another place, we used tents, right? And so the place is called Palatki, and it has very specific remains, patterns on the, on stones, big rocks, and these are swastika patterns and spirals. These are our, our legacy, and why we have swastikas and why we have spirals, because spirals, they depict how the soul goes from one dimension to another dimension. It's basically the depiction of the teleportation portal. And swastika is the center of our galaxy, and our galaxy rotates around its center, which is a black hole. And swastika actually depicts this rotation. And because the universe is holographic, meaning that the entire universe is entirely in its every matrix point. This means that we have the entire universe inside of us. So our third eye is precisely the center, coincides with the center of our universe. And that's why that's why swastika is so important. And I saw the vase just also recently in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. The vase, it was an urn, a funeral urn of the archaic Greek culture, which is our culture, basically Russian Aryan culture, because it's proven, very well known that Greeks came to the territory of Greece from the territory of Russia. So this funeral urn depicts how the soul goes to the other dimension. It depicts the funeral procession, and then on the other side of the urn, like vase, big vase, it depicts precisely two spirals and the swastika. So the same spirals and the same swastika you can see in Arizona, and Arizona actually is Arya Zona, zone of Aryans. And in Aryan, if you look at Russian cities in Siberia or Urals, many of them have R as the root of the name of the city. Krasnoyarsk, Yari, Aryan. Yari means sunny, belonging to the sun god Ra. The sun in ancient Russian is Yarila, Yari, Ari. So Aryan and Yari is the same thing.
So it's all basically centered around the sun and around the center of the galaxy.
Yeah, it's the idea. It's the idea of the unity of cosmos, city or polis, and soul. And this idea, belong to our culture from times immemorial, because it's scientific idea. If you look at Aristotle is a Russian philosopher, because Macedonians, he's Macedonian, right? Macedonians are Slavs, and Slav is a very vague notion. I would say Russian Aryan, because Slav means somebody who makes rituals in honor of sun. Slavic means to honor something. That's what it is, basically. So it's their exact name is Aryan, it's Russian, the same thing, because Russian the language is read from both sides. So to understand the meaning, you should read it from left to right and from right to left. So because of this unity of cosmos and man, we have the entire universe inside of us. So we are sons ourselves. So we are the son of sun.
Of course. And I can almost already feel what many people in brainwashed Germany would think now and may also say now when you mention the swastika, when you mention sun, because it was all used by the Nazi Party and the Third Reich. And my feeling is as if it was the purpose of putting someone in power who would then be used later as a kind of a bad example. Like, look, people who use the swastika are bad people. People who, and the Nazis also used a lot the word Aryan. And so as if they were trying to destroy the possibility of using these words without being called a Nazi, because that's basically it. If you use the word Aryan, Aria in German now, they directly call you a Nazi. They say, are you crazy to talk about this bullshit Hitler was talking about? Or it's even forbidden to wear this symbol you have on your clothes there.
I put it specifically as put it on purpose.
Of course, I understand that, and I know that it's a cosmic symbol, and you find it all over the planet. That's not the point. But in Germany, you have to understand that this is an illegal symbol. If you go on the street wearing this, they take you to court and they punish you. And for me, this makes sense to use somebody who is kind of a weirdo. And this brings me then to my next question, because I made a comparison or an examination of the human designs of Hitler and Vladimir Putin. And they are quite similar in their designs. And the question for me is now, what is the purpose of this confrontation now between first they had the purpose to destroy Germany. I mean, that was what was very clear, what Churchill said, that it's not about destroying Hitler, that it's not about destroying German military or industry, but that it's about destroying Germany. And and after the war, Churchill is reported to have said that they slaughtered the wrong pig, looking to Russia, looking to Stalin at that time. And so that was, for me, very clear that sooner or later they would make an attempt to get hold of control over Russia. And so what is your perception on Mr. Putin in this context? Is he the Zionist puppet that some people say, or is he the great hero of liberty that some others want him to perceive like? It's a very it's not so easy to look into that. I mean, all I know is that he was in the Russian Secret Service, in the KGB. He was in Eastern Germany for a while, but there's not so much information. And I just got into that because I heard this comparison Hillary Clinton once made a few weeks ago, that she said, well, Putin is like Hitler somehow, and he starts now like Hitler did. And I just actually looked at the human designs to kind of prove myself, well, there is nothing they have in common. But to my great surprise, they have the same aura type, they have the same profile, they have the same authority. So there is a lot of similarity in the personalities of Hitler and Putin. And I have the feeling that, as you said, that Obama is completely artificial. I wonder if they don't put puppets in all the places they want to engage in wars.
Now, let me start with the most important thing is that we whites right now are 8% of the world population. So we are in absolute, total, complete minority. And this is basically right now we are at the the red line. So if you cross this red line, we disappear. So at this moment, we should understand that all of us belong to the same family, to the same motherland, Russia. So Russia is our motherland. What they tried to do, they tried to erase our memory that we all came from Russia. So Germans, Eastern Germans, are genetically identical to Russians. You know, all the cities in old cities in Germany, they have Russian names. And Germans, Saxons who came from the West, they still have memory that before they came to the Latinized Germans, right? They were basically Eastern Germans from Russia, Slavs or whatever you call them, and even these Western Germans, right? They also initially were from Russia. We all lived on the territory of Russia and spoke Russian. So that's why Germany, Germans had a completely different mindset from the people who were, you must say, Latinized or converted into this kind of Old Testament or Judaic, Negroid virtues and values much earlier. And the mechanism of genocide is precisely first the cultural genocide and then the ethnical cleansing, And first comes the brainwashing, and then comes the actual destruction of the people. And this would happen to Germany. So I know that this is a new story. You didn't ask about it, but it's very important to mention this.
No, and I agree, and because there is a political party in Germany, they are called the Greens, and they are basically the executors of this genocide in Germany. They hate Germany. Every leader of the Green Party hates Germany. That's for sure, and they always say how happy they are if Germany gets destroyed, and if the borders of France will match the borders of Poland somehow. So what does that mean? No more Germany. And they also they have a Turk as their leader now, Cem Özdemir, and he's having a German passport, but basically he's Turkish, and which fits to what you say about the Khazars, and the point is that they fight everyone who even tries to mention the policy to Germans. And there is one author, he's called Thilo Sarrazin, and he wrote a book that basically the title is "Germany Gets Rid of Itself" or something like that would be in English. And he is considered a very intelligent thinker abroad, but in Germany they basically call him a stupid Nazi. And now the even funnier thing is that an author who was born in Turkey, he wrote some fiction books before, and now his name is Akif Pirinci, and he wrote a book now about Germany getting destroyed by policies over homosexuals, Muslims, and all this is valued higher than natural German families, like which are basically regarded as useless, and it's like that's old-fashioned, and they even try to to put things out like as if homosexuality was the true way of being, and and all this fits completely to what you say about brainwashing and genocide.
Yes, and you're completely right. Hitler was a project of Zionists, and they specifically brought him to power to undermine and subvert their ideology. What they did actually, they introduced a foreign values, the values of Talmud, into our ideology, because we were never genocidal. Look at Russia. We still have 100 small nations on our territory, and their ideals of domination of one race was never our ideal, and global genocide, ethnical cleansing was never our strategy. And they precisely, you're completely right, they precisely attempted the subversion, the humiliation of our cultural legacy, and they introduced their own Nazism into our culture, and they are Nazi. Talmud is Nazism, because in Talmud you can read, in Talmud you can read exactly the strategy of global genocide. Goyim, those who are non-Jews, should be either enslaved or they should be killed. This is Nazism.
Okay.